Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And from Michigan State University, I have Kristen Kelsay. Welcome.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so happy you're able to hop on here and share your journey. And the way we start things off is we do a few random questions. So are you ready?
Okay, hit it.
All right, you're driving in your car. What song on the radio comes on that brings out your singer?
Oh, for those that know me know that I am so tone deaf. I mean, it's bad. My middle sister has an incredible voice, and we used to play the radio loud enough that you could hear her but drown me out. So we have a lot of sing-alongs, throwback songs. Man, I don't know. You know what song I've been jamming a lot is like Brandon Lake.
Okay.
Recently his Hallelujah. And I worked out this morning and then I was driving home and I was embarrassingly singing. So that was the last song that I was singing to myself.
Perfect. All right, next question. What's one TV show or movie you watch way too many times?
Okay, this is bad. I am not a TV person. I already say like I spend too much time on Instagram. So I'm not a big TV person, but I grew up and I don't know why I was obsessed with the movie Grease.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's probably the only movie in my life I've seen more than like 5 or 6 times. I did restart this fall One Tree Hill. That was one that I loved, but yeah, I'm the worst like movie reference, TV show reference. We always joke, my sisters and I, that like, we don't ever ask us if we've seen a movie because we're probably going to say no.
Well, you can't go wrong with Grease. It is a classic.
It's a class. And sometimes I'll be in a hotel and I'll just turn it on and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, I can't believe I watched this when I was really young, but here we are.
Yeah. All right. Last question. So you're heading out to eat. What's your favorite food you like to get?
If I'm going to go out to eat, so I'm pretty spoiled. Growing up, my dad was a tremendous cook. And so family dinner was a big thing at our house because we ate around the table together. And still I go home and he'll be like, what do you want? What do you want to eat for dinner? And so a lot of times it was like he was better than everywhere else we went. But if I'm going out to dinner, like something that's different. So I would say like sushi, right? Or something that maybe he wasn't comfortable or we didn't have at home. And especially like if I'm on a body of water, right?
Yeah.
Some seafood or some sushi is definitely my order.
Nice. Yeah, because up in your neck of the woods, you know really large bodies of water, right?
No, only Great Lakes here. And I've only lived in the Midwest my whole life. So it's definitely something I do when I travel the country and get to have some good seafood.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, welcome to the podcast. And let's start things off with how's spring season going?
It's great. We just finished 2 weeks ago. And first spring season as head coach, which is a special one. I'll always remember. And we had our spring like debrief staff meeting today and a lot of gratitude, just one for these people who said yes, right? Who took the phone call and said yes and are joining me on this journey. And a lot of, hey, what do we like? What we can be better at in terms of training and teaching and also like location and timing and practice block and just really debriefed the last 3 months and a lot of good, honestly, like nice. So much growth. Our athletes worked really hard. I couldn't ask for more in the gym. Really bought into our core values, which I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit of who we are and how we're going to live this journey together. And are really excited about this next chapter. And so it was a really successful, really promising spring for us.
Nice. And yeah, with spring, what are you looking to get out of this, out of the session?
So for me, it was like, can we walk out of the spring with a couple of goals? One, all speaking the same language. And when I say that, I mean like volleyball wise, like technically, like here's what's important to me. Here's what's important to our staff. Here's what we're going to call this set. Here's how we're going to serve, here's how we're going to move. So that was really important. There was like congruence in like drills and teaching of like how we're going to operate. Probably most importantly though, was that we're going to all buy in and live by this set of core values. And I made it very clear to them that these are not your personal values. These are not my personal values. These are as anyone who's coming to Michigan State as an athlete or a staff member is committed to these program values.
Yeah.
And then 3, we wanted to get better at volleyball. And so we had check-ins. We think we did 5 over the spring of where are we in the fall? Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And just tracking growth, right? Of like everything from our error percentage and attacking to good pass percentage to serving. So it was really fun. Our technical coordinator, Rachel, she put together a presentation at the end of spring of just our growth from the winter to spring and what we saw in our competitions. And I think like 98% of it was just green growth in every phase. So that was really exciting for us to be able to show them, hey, your hard work is paying off, right? And here's what's some things to focus on heading into the summer.
Nice. All right. Well, let's go back. So you said you're from the Midwest originally. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I say suburbs because I say Chicago a lot, and that's not true. It's the suburbs of Chicago. I grew up in Wheaton. Lived in Chicago, my whole life in the same house my parents are still in. I have 2 younger sisters. Yeah. And then came to East Lansing for college.
Oh boy. And now, when did you first discover volleyball?
It was the summer before 5th grade. So my mom was a high school teacher and my dad was a high school coach and clinical psychologist. He was the school psychologist, and they met at quintessential, I think, like American Love Story, right? He was the football coach. She was the cheer coach. They met at the high school that they work at. And I remember the summer before 5th grade going to like camp there in the summer and doing a tennis camp and then doing a volleyball camp. And I was fortunate to be raised in a community that like volleyball was really strong. I mean, Wheaton St. Francis, I think Peg Kopech, the coach there, is in the Hall of Fame, had won 16 state championships, right? So growing up, it was like the sport that people did. And my parents didn't know much about volleyball. So they signed me up and I did the camp that summer at their high school. And 6 months later, was playing club volleyball. So here we are.
Awesome. And now, what was the hook volleyball had on you that, looking back now, it's been a part of your life?
I think I love that it was something new, right? I'm an oldest and I'm pretty independent. And I think there was part of me that was like, it was my thing, right? Like it wasn't, my parents didn't play it. They didn't know much about it. My friends played it. My grade school was like, good at it, as much as like a 5th grade through 8th grade grade school. But it was something that like I could call my own, and I wasn't like a super athlete. And that's part of my story, right? Is like, I was not this athletic kid who's just like running circles on the soccer field or like hammering tennis balls or like hitting every pitch in softball. And so I think because of the skill nature of volleyball, it gave me a niche of like, I don't have to be the fastest or the strongest or the tallest, but if I work really hard, I can get a lot better at this thing that gives me a space to compete and to be my best self and to ultimately just have fun. Like I loved it. Nice. So it was just a unique blend, I think, of all that at the time of my life.
Excellent. And you said you played club. How important was playing club to enable you to be able to get recruited and play in college?
It was really important, especially, the area I grew up in. I always joke that my senior year at Wheaton St. Francis, of like the 14 kids on our team, I think 7 or 8 played Division I volleyball. Oh, wow. One of them was Kelsay Robinson, and we didn't win state. Like that's how good the area was. Yeah. And so it was kind of a prerequisite in the area that I lived in. Now, not everybody started as early as I did, but it was, it was so competitive at the high schools in the area I was in that most people who wanted to make varsity were playing club volleyball.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And now, I have a question from Dan Meskey, who was on, and he said, and I watched the pod that you guys were on, and he said, you mentioned about being in a setter camp for 20-day setter camp. And he wanted to know, how in the world did you keep playing volleyball after that?
I don't, Dan, that's a good question. There was a summer that I did it
Oh
twice,
my
which is
God.
like, we didn't get into the Chicago one. So my mom signed me up for the one at Texas State. And I flew down there. And I remember the coaches being like, what are you doing here? And it's like, well, it's like, I have to do this. And then also got in the Chicago one. I always feel like it toughened me up, right? It was,
Yeah.
and I just love setting. Like I still to this day, my athletes will be like, would you ever play again? I'm like, if only I could back set every ball the rest of my life, I would play, you know? But yeah, I survived.
Though you don't see things like that anymore, that length of camp. My daughter would love that, but yeah,
Yeah.
I can only imagine how expensive that would be in today's day and age.
True. It was 3 sessions a day for 10 days. And there were some like classroom sessions in there, which were cool because you
Yeah.
learned how, like my first time ever learning about isolations and overload. So there was some, but there was not much of a break.
Yeah.
It was rigorous.
Oh boy. And now, after high school, you ended up at Michigan State University. What was that recruiting process like? I heard it was a bit of a roller coaster ride too.
Yeah, it was. And I talked about that with Dan too, is I was a pretty late recruited athlete, partly because of my journey with the sport, right? Like I was on the 12-1 team and the 18-1 team, right? And the 6 years in between that was fours team, fives team, threes team.
Yeah.
So that summer I did 2 setting academies. I was like fighting for my life to like fighting to make the club and fighting to, make a team. And so it really was, back then your junior year was your most important season. And I was the junior setter on the 18 elite team. So I
Yeah.
didn't play other than going in to serve like all club season in the hopes of being the 18 elite setter the
Hmm.
next year, which I was. But it made the recruiting process challenging. And so I had a great kind of like spring, summer before my senior year, ended up getting a call from John Cook, going on a visit, committing to Nebraska, right? Like 0 to 100s. Like
Right.
I might, I might walk on somewhere. Like I don't know what's going to happen to, my club coach vouching for me. And now all of a sudden I'm committed to Nebraska with a full scholarship. Right. And then the story of Lauren Cook, who was the NCAA freshman of the year, just this badass setter, right, who was returning home. And I thought, you know what? I really just want to go somewhere and make an impact. And I
Hmm.
think that's now that path has changed. So I decommitted, which at the time was actually like a transfer. So I used my transfer
Okay.
and went through the recruiting process again, this time as a February of my senior year,
Oh my
right?
God.
So yes, scary. Um, but really was a blessing in terms of, okay, that recruiting process first was so wild. I
Hmm.
didn't really evaluate like what is important to me, right? And now what do I really want? And I went on a couple of visits, came to Michigan State and truly just fell in love with the people, with Kathy and Russ Carney and Mike Golick and the team and the campus. It's this place is, I mean, I don't mean to be selling like, recruiting pitch here, but this place is beautiful and it's your quintessential college campus.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. And now looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because now I'm the head coach and
Right.
I feel very grateful for that.
That's so cool. Very awesome. And now, if we can jump back to, you were talking about you're on the fives and fours and six teams. That's a good story for players to hear that you can, you don't, even though you're playing at that team, you can still play at a high level, whether it's, D1 or D2 or
Yeah.
D3, and
Yeah.
and I think a part of the problem today is a lot of these, kids or parents, they shun away from the D2s or D3s, like, oh, it's got to be D1. And, if you want to
Yeah.
play volleyball, there's a place for you out there.
There is. And you have to find like what I tell our athletes is like, what's your superpower? Right? Like I wasn't a 6'4" lefty. I used to joke like I'd give my left hand to be a lefty setter,
I'm right
like
there with you. Yeah.
yeah. And that just wasn't my superpower. So I had to find my superpower. And part of that was like, I'm just gonna outwork everyone. And if I don't end up achieving my goals, okay, I can look back and say I gave it everything that I had. And it's scary, right? Like looking back, I like acknowledge that that did take a lot of courage, to like put it all out there, but I thought, what do I have to lose? I'm
Right.
already on the fours team,
Yeah.
So I did two 10-day camps that summer. Yeah. And, but I think every athlete is unique in what their superpower is. And I think sometimes we chase the elite team or we
Mm-hmm.
chase this dream when at times you have to reroute. And I think that's what happened in my recruiting class. I had an opportunity to reroute and say, okay, no, what is best for me? Right. Like
Yeah.
my sophomore year, making the 16 threes team, it was really a reroute, a fork in the road of like, which way am I going to go?
Yeah.
But I can't pretend to be someone I'm not because otherwise I'll never be authentically who I am.
You won't be happy down the road.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And what was that first year like of college? Because there's such a lot of adjustments, a lot of challenges. For you, what were the big sort of adjustments, if you can remember?
I think honestly, just like from a volleyball standpoint, it was just the speed and the physicality, right? Like I remember my freshman year, we were in like the Penn State, 4-time national. I remember playing them and just being like, I am a girl among women here, like
Yeah.
it was just, you go from being, the 18 elite, 18 open setter to, you've got now 4 or 5 years of athletes that you are
Right.
competing with and against. So I think that was the biggest jump in my eyes. I was pretty prepared academically and time management wise, but that was a big, the Big Ten is no joke, and that was a big jump. Even as someone who started as a freshman, right? I earned a
Mm-hmm.
role, but it took a while because we didn't come early. We didn't come in the summer. I showed up day one of preseason, and it was, hey, here's our playbook. Here's your
Oh boy.
classes. Here's where you're living. Here's your teammates. We want you to be a leader. It was like
Yeah.
it was spinning. So I think that early arrival, whether that's January or June or July, gives our athletes now a little more time to get their feet under them before we dive into preseason.
Yeah, because you think that's a lot on these athletes' shoulders, especially for women's volleyball. Because it's a fall sport, they show up in July. You're getting ready to go start playing games end of August, and it's go
Yeah,
until November.
100%, and that's the length of the season, I think too, is different, right? You play club volleyball and you play high school volleyball, and club volleyball is very long, but it's different, right? You're not traveling every week. It's
Right.
so I think just it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint, and it is we play a very long season, especially if you're going into the second or third round of the NCAA
Yeah,
tournament.
definitely. And now looking back at your time at MSU, what were some of the highlights, good memories for you?
Oh man, I have actually a couple pictures up here of them. I think the turning point for me, and I would say like for the program, was my junior year. We were good and not great, right? We had my freshman year, we didn't make the NCAA tournament. My sophomore year, we made it. We went to Texas. We won the first match, lost to Texas. And then my junior year, we were like border top 25, had some pretty good Big Ten wins, but we're sitting still like 10-10, that 11-9. Um, and we get sent to UCLA. And that was 2012. So it was the year after they won the national
Mm-hmm.
championship. And that we had not been to a Sweet 16 at Michigan State for, I believe, like maybe 7 years, 6 or 7 years. And the first match, we play San Diego and we win. And we walk in the next night and we beat UCLA in 4
Wow.
and to go to the Sweet 16, defending national champs.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's when the program really took a turn, right? It was like, it was the moment of, oh my gosh, I can't believe we just did that. And the moment of like, yeah, like that's who we are. And we've been working for this and trying to make this name, right? And then my senior year, we're top 5 in the country, right? We open up the Big Ten, beating Penn State, being Ohio State. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it was just really exciting. Again, a 4-year swing from not being tournament eligible freshman year to having those moments. And then honestly, Barry, like 3 years later, I'm coaching in an Elite Eight and we're 2 points away from a final, it's just like that arc in that building process
Mm-hmm.
is was one of the most fulfilling things of my life and why I'm back here, right? Because
Yeah.
I've done it and I believe in it. And I'll never forget those moments that I had knowing where we started and where
Yeah.
we were able to go.
No kidding. That's awesome. And now, you know, after you were done college, what, you know, when did the coaching bug, you know, sort of get you?
It's kind of crazy, Barry, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was a psychology major. I was going to go to grad
Mm-hmm.
school. I was kind of a nerd. I was SAC president. I like loved school. And I thought, okay, I don't really know. I'm going to stay at Michigan State. I was going to be a GA in our academic center, and I was
Mm-hmm.
going to do community outreach and help with SAC. And that was a big part of my identity as a student athlete. But I knew that I loved coaching, and it was actually Kathy George and Mike Golick who the summer before my senior year said, "Hey, you're going to run some of our camps." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, like you're going to run our setters camp because you're really good at this, and they love you." And like I sat down with Mike, and we went through like an itinerary, and literally they allowed me as a incoming senior to run this 3-hour setting camp, and they gave me a platform at RL Skills to teach a setting and to teach serve receive and to talk about. And it really was like, I do like this and I enjoy this, but it was never like, oh, I'm going to be a college coach.
Right.
Right. But they planted the seed. And I always say like they saw something in me I didn't see myself.
Yeah.
So fast forward May, I graduate Michigan State. I'm the GA there from like mid-May until it's probably like October. And I was around the volleyball team, but I was also busy. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, Barry, I had like stepped away, and it was nice. It was like I was doing things I hadn't done as a student. I was tailgating and I was
Right.
here in the fall and I wasn't traveling, but I missed it. Like I really missed the mentorship piece. I missed the relationship piece. And I'll never forget, I walked into Kathy's office. I should look up the date. It was someday in October, and she gets up and she closes the door. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Right? Like, am I in trouble? Like, what did I do? And she starts asking me, as Kathy does, these very impactful questions of like, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you enjoying what you're doing? Because she cared about me so much. She didn't want to offer me an opportunity if I loved what I was doing. And I
Right.
was like all in. But I trusted her, and I shared with her that there were some things I really missed. And she ended the conversation with offering me, she said, my associate head, Russ Carney, is retiring, and I would like to elevate Mike, and I want to hire you 22, like fresh 22, as my full-time Big Ten assistant coach
Oh,
in
wow.
January.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was one of those moments I'll never forget. I remember sitting there, like my jaw like hit the floor. I was like, excuse me,
Yeah.
And because she believed in me and because she gave me this opportunity 10 years ago, honestly, 10 years ago to the day, I started January of 2015 as the assistant here, head coach, January 2025 at Michigan State.
Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
now, you know, last year I was asked to help assistant coach one of my daughter's high school JV teams.
Hmm.
And first time ever coaching or anything like that, it didn't take me long to realize coaching is more than just X's and O's. When did it hit you that there's more than just X's and O's to coaching?
I think it was like that spring when we used to walk in the office and be like, what do you guys do all day? Like you don't know as athletes. And I think it was that spring when you're in the 8 hours. And back then you only had 2 of the 8 hours was volleyball. And we were recruiting like January 11th. So I
Mm-hmm.
like started January 5th and was on the road that weekend, right? I'll never forget my first recruiting trip was, going to see Nicklin Hames. And we joke about that all the time, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't even legally like rent a car without extra insurance. And yeah, I realized like, wow, I love volleyball. I love coaching, but there's a lot more to this job that I better
Mm-hmm.
learn if I love it, because there is a lot more than just what you see in the fall. And we
Mm-hmm.
prepare all year for what you see in the fall. It's so important,
Yeah.
but there is so much other parts of the job. And what I loved about it was the people parts,
Yeah.
right? And that's why I do this, is because I love the relationships. I love the recruiting. I love the staff development. I love the player development. And to see that all come together
Mm-hmm.
with success on the court, I think is the ultimate fulfillment of those things.
Yep, absolutely. And now, after, you ended up going to Minnesota for assistant coaching there. What are some of the things that you learned there that you're bringing with you here at MSU?
Man, I'm so thankful that Cook called me that December because I've learned so much from him. I think first and foremost, just how to do what we do at the highest level, right, at Minnesota, and still do it with character integrity. I think that is the most important thing that he taught me is we're going to do this right. And I'm only going to bring people here who believe in doing it right. And I have the utmost respect for him and his team and his program in the University of Minnesota because they are committed to that. And so that really truly showed me like this is how to do it, and I feel very grateful that all three head coaches I've worked with were committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing I learned with Keegan is the importance of values and the importance of having whatever you call them, right? Having a set of for us values that you create and you live. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a sheet that I hand them on January 10th and we don't talk about it again.
Right.
It's something that you live, and as a head coach, you have to model, right? And it holds me to a higher standard of modeling these values that I'm asking our program to live by. And so
Yeah.
they're different than they were, but I learned the importance of that under him. And I have so much respect for not only himself and the program, but how he truly does live to the values that he asks his program to live to.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, since starting this podcast, I have discovered, being a coach, the coaching lives that you guys live is not an easy career to jump into, whether it's volunteering, coaching, assistant
Mm-hmm.
coaching and if you have a
Mm-hmm.
family, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, it is. I think my friends are finally starting to realize what I do, but you have to truly love it, and I'll share this quote. We have an academic gala every year. And it's a really neat. I've never been at any other university who's done this. A lot of schools do like an SBs, right, or an
Yeah.
athletic gala, player of the year. Well, we do none of that. We do academics only. And so if you're a sophomore or older with a 3.0 or higher, because a freshman you'd only have one semester under your belt, you're invited to this academic gala where they have speakers and award winners, and every award that's given is academics, leadership, community service, diversity, and there's an entertainment. And every athlete who's invited walks across the stage and shakes the hands of their college advisor and like our AD and everything.
Yeah.
And this year, our speaker was the one and only Tom Izzo.
Oh, wow.
And he had a quote that I will use now and quote him, of course, for the rest of time. He said, in life, he's talking to the athletes, and whatever you choose to do, I have a question for you. And how great do you want to be? He's like, can I talk to my guys about this? Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you live it? And if you like it, yeah, you might be pretty successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might strike gold. If you love it, right? Like, okay, we're talking next level. We're talking, right? You love it and you obsess over it, but do you live it? And do you live it in the moments where it's really difficult to live it? And even on days you don't like it, do you live it? And it was such an empowering message of, honestly, I thought about our jobs and what we do, because like you said, there's chaos, right? And there's change, and it's, the world of college sports is changing. But if you truly love it and live it, it's a really rewarding and outstanding profession.
Yeah. Nice. That's a great quote.
I know. I loved it. I've used it a couple of times since. Shout out Tom Izzo.
Yep, definitely. And now, you come full circle now, playing at Michigan State University. Now you're coming in there as a head coach. But before you got there, I heard it was a I didn't even know this, but once you transition from one school to the next school, there's like a cutoff point where you can't talk to those athletes, those kids that you recruited and spent so much time with.
Yeah.
That's got to
Yeah.
be
It's so
so
hard.
hard. Yeah.
It's so hard. It's for me, the hardest part of transitioning to a new place because you've just spent however many years, 4 years at Michigan State, 3 years at Northwestern, 2 years at Minnesota, like pouring your heart and your life into these athletes. And then I Zoom with them at 9 a.m. that Sunday and say, hey, at midnight tonight, I am the new Michigan State volleyball head coach and I can no longer have contact with you, which is the right thing.
Right.
I should not be contacting athletes at other,
Yep.
but it is so abrupt, right? And that is, I think, it has to be right because of
Mm-hmm.
the professionalism of it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's heartbreaking. And I told this story before, but I'll never forget waking up that morning and my mom was like, "Are you so excited?" Because it was getting announced that day. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Mom, I think I'm gonna throw up." Right? Like, actually, no, I can't even get there because I have to tell a group of women that I love with my whole heart that I am leaving.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it 30 seconds into that call,
Oh,
So yeah, it's a very difficult part of the
yeah.
transition.
Definitely. And now, at Michigan State University, you are now the head coach. And, Matt Ulmer, when he was on, he describes as moving that one chair up. You're no longer that fun, happy uncle. You're a different role. The players are going to look at you differently. Are you ready for that?
I mean, I'm here,
Yep.
right? And I'm learning, and it is sitting on the other side of the desk definitely there are changes, right? And the roles change. But I really try to stay authentic to me, right? And it doesn't change the care and concern I have for my student
Yeah.
athletes. It doesn't change my commitment to them. It doesn't change the what we call courageous conflict, right? The conversations are heavier at times,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's more weight to them. The depth is way deeper than
Yeah.
as an assistant. Um, but I also can have more impact,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there can be a lot more beautiful things that come from this. So I really try to see it both ways, especially on days that are hard.
Yeah.
But to me, it's truly like a privilege and something that I I care about deeply of doing it right and
Mm-hmm.
doing it with the student athlete's best, their best outcome in mind as much as possible at this
Right.
while also keeping the mission of our program at the forefront of every decision I make.
Yeah. And now, speaking of the mission, like you're coming in, you sort of have a clean slate. You get to establish a new volleyball culture, but that is already building off of the basis of a strong athletic history, with the
Mhm.
values at Michigan State.
Yeah, I think for us, we want to be a winning program, right? And that's going to look different every year, but we want that to be the decisions that we might or that we make, whether that's me as a lineup or in the portal or as staff, or that's our athletes, right? In practice or in the summer or on vacation, or like every decision we make, we want to keep with the mission in mind, right?
Yeah.
And are you helping us or are you hurting us, right? That's something Kathy used to say all the time. Are you helping us or are you hurting us? And in order to move this needle where we want to move it, it's going to take a lot of hard work and it's going to take some discipline and it's going to take sacrifice, right? So I have to balance as head coach, right? Where the decisions that I make are right and they
Mm-hmm.
are also best for the mission of the program.
Yeah. And now, coming in as a new coach, I'm sure there was a lot of questions with the new recruits and the existing players there. Like you should have just settle them in and say, it's not the end of the world. We're, it's a new time and we're going to be successful here.
Yeah, it was awesome, honestly, getting to know all of the people. I think as an alum, there's this piece of me that one has followed the program pretty
Yeah.
closely, but two, it doesn't matter who you committed to or what the scenario is. I love Michigan State volleyball. I love Michigan State, and you committed to this place and you were loyal through the transition. I have loyalty to you, right? Because we both love and care about this
Mm-hmm.
place so much. That I think that being an alumni of this program really helped in that part of the transition when talking to student athletes,
Right.
talking to parents, that there's a familiarity of I've walked the hallways your daughter will walk,
Yeah.
right? Like our equipment manager, Barry, I can't tell you how many people around our program are these same
Oh, that's
people of
awesome.
when I played or when I coached. And it's such a blessing that
Mm-hmm.
they know me and they understand, right? Like our program. And so there's a sense of peace of
Mm-hmm.
I can look a mom and dad in the eye and say, I know who your daughter will be surrounded by because I was pretty fortunate to be surrounded by them too.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that. The fact that you chose there, you were there as a student athlete. That just tells the parents, the kids that are committed, that you're there for they're there for the same reasons you came to that school. They saw something.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent. And now from a recruiting standpoint, how do you what's your pitch? Why should a student look at Michigan State to come play volleyball?
It's a great question, Barry, and I can't give all my secrets away.
That's okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I think something that's really unique to Michigan State is the level of success that we have as an institution, not only academically, but also athletically. And I always talk about like Michigan State athletics is the front door to this university, right? And there is a sense of support from the institution, which is not true at every school,
Hmm.
in athletics, right? And our president, right? Like is a proponent of athletics. He is building this new facility, right? Like it is not a athletics facility. It is coming from our board and our president, this new facility for women's volleyball and gymnastics. And there is a sense of support that then trickles down
Hmm.
through the athletic department. And being a Spartan is truly unlike anything else I've seen, honestly. Like I was in Phoenix last weekend wearing go green, go white. And I had 5 people over 3 days be like, go green, Michigan State, class of 90, like there's more living alumni, I think, than any other school. And so it's just a really unique part to be
Hmm.
for an identity. And it's a place where we have the support and we have what we need to build.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part is we need the people and we've got the support and I'm excited to see where we go.
Nice. Excellent. And now, for those kids that are coming in, those players, they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders, how, and, try, and you got to do your best not to sort of lose their mental, focus and whatnot. What advice do you have for these freshmen coming in about to start this, college life as a D1 athlete?
We already talked a little bit about like what's your superpower, right? And one challenge that I give to our student athletes is how quickly can you be authentically you?
Mm-hmm.
How quickly can you be your truest self, right? And the quicker that we can build that trust and the quicker that we can show up as we are, the faster we can move forward.
Yeah.
But if there's always a wall or there's always a shield or there's something getting in the way of you having the courage to ask the question because you don't understand part of the drill or, like then there's going to be roadblocks. But I think find your superpower and what your team needs,
Mm-hmm.
And be who you are and don't try to be somebody or not, whether that's on the volleyball court, but honestly, most importantly, in your character and in your personality and who you are, because that's what makes you so special.
Yeah.
And the school you went to, they recruited you for you. And so make sure that you are being true to who you are. We could talk about work ethic and everything
Right.
else, but I think that's to me a given. It's what do you bring to us and how are you becoming a piece of our family?
Yeah. Excellent. And now, from a recruiting side of things, you were part of the recruitment team at Minnesota, and now a head coach, big involvement in recruiting. Where do you find your kids? Are you finding them at the big tournaments, or you getting kids reaching out to you directly? Here's some videos of me playing and things like that. Because often you probably don't have you may have some kids that either don't play for a club big enough that make it to that level. So how do you find those sort of diamonds in the rough?
And I think it's a little bit of everything, right? Like I think a lot of times it is the big qualifiers. But I've also found kids at a state tournament here in Michigan, right? That you're like, okay, I need to know every kid in the state,
Yeah.
I think whether that's the USA programs or whether that's, club practices or camps in the summer, right? I saw a kid last summer who was at a camp. She just flew there from a different club. And I was like, who are you? And so I think it happens in a lot of different ways, honestly, Barry. But what I'm fortunate about is when I came back here is that every club director of the major clubs in Michigan were the same, right, as when I left. And so it was really cool. And for most of them, I've known them 10 plus years since I was a player. And so it's been great to I've still had those relationships, as I was recruiting in other states, but being back here and having those relationships is so helpful in the recruiting process. Again, because they already know me and what I stand for, but now I have their trust and can call them about an athlete and ask direct questions, and they'll give me names. And that's really an important part of this process too, is those relationships with the high school coaches and the club coaches and the club directors.
And something I've heard is, often if you don't have an athlete that make it to the big tournaments, going to the camps that are held by the colleges are also a great way to be seen and just, establish a connection.
It is. It really is. And you have to, as a family, decide you only have so much resources, whether that's time or money, right? It's difficult, but I do think that that's a really positive, part of the recruiting process for a lot of athletes who are able to do that.
Yeah. And now, speaking of club, what have you seen over the last few years that you wish clubs would focus on more with the kids, whether it's focused more on serving or all around skills, passing? Is there something that clubs really should spend a little bit more time on when they're, working, with these kids?
I was able to coach a year in club, and I absolutely loved my experience club coaching. I learned so much. It helped me so much now being back in the college game. I went from coaching Big Ten volleyball to, 16 elite, 18 elite, and third and fourth, right? And, fall league, and so it really opened my eyes to the development, and gave me a lot of more perspective into the club coach's role and the impact that they can ultimately have. And so I do think that's pretty specific, but I think one thing we always talked about is how do we get them to be the best volleyball players? And I think some athletes are going to be just more specialized than others, but let's not have our middles ever not serve, because if they want to play pro, they have to serve, right? Just things like that, where it's important that we care about the full development of them. That was just one of our focuses with the club I was at.
Yeah. From a recruitment standpoint, are you over the years, have you seen any, common mistakes parents make or, athletes make when it comes to recruiting? This is a no-no, don't do this, or any words of advice for those parents and players jumping into this, space of recruiting?
I think as much as possible, let your athletes drive. And I think being there and being supportive for them and being, at times the devil's advocate, right? Of okay, have you thought about this? But, we always joke, we can tell when it's, a parent leading the charge or an athlete. Yeah. And it just definitely is more authentic, right? When it's the athlete who's leading it. And so I love talking to parents. I think it's awesome. They're a big part of my life and they still are, but making sure that it's what the athletes want and it's the athlete's dream and not the parents.
All right. Now, from a coaching standpoint, what has been, sort of the most significant lesson you've learned as a coach, and how has it influenced your philosophy from coaching?
The first thing that popped in my head was relationships matter. And when I thought through that a little bit more, it's the age old saying of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And I think that's truly a life lesson of how you treat people, right? Especially when you have to say no. And as a head coach, I have to say no more than as an assistant. I have to say no, whether that's no, this is not good enough, or no, you're not right for our program, or no, that's not acceptable. But how you say no is so important, and how you treat people in that process of saying yes and no, right? Because the quickest way I think to lose an athlete is to totally just lose their trust. Yeah. And there's going to be times I withdraw from their trust, but I have to be depositing every single day. Yeah. And this life, volleyball is so small, right? And then you look at college athletics, but if you look, just life is too short and it's too small of a world to not have those things catch up to you
Yeah.
when you don't do it right. And it's part of my personal values, but it's just, we're going to do it with integrity, and we're going to lead with kindness, and we're going to work really hard, and whatever happens, happens. But as a coach, you see that. I think I can't tell you how many athletes in the last 3 months I've talked to, whether it's the recruiting process or the portal, who, I talked to an athlete over the weekend that I went 8 years ago to watch a high school game, 8 years ago. And here we are 8 years later having a conversation in the portal, right? And it's just so important of you are who you are, you
Mm-hmm.
say what you're going to do, and you treat people well.
Yeah. Awesome. Loved it. And now speaking of the portal, that's a whole huge ball of chaos and questions and everything like that. And I think tomorrow the portal opens, I think.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
How much of an impact, negatively or positively, do you think the portal is having on sports? Because you look at, like, just in the last few months, you had John Cook step away, Kirsten over at Creighton, Mary Wise.
Mhm.
They're sort of like the landscape is changing, and is it because of the NIL and the portal and things like that?
I don't know. And I don't want to speak for them, because
Yeah.
you're right. We've certainly lost some legends, and some mentors of mine, but um it is changing. It looks very different, and it looks very different than it did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And one thing I try to remember is that I only can control what I can control,
Yep.
right? And what I can control is, as much as I try to, is helping our athletes have what I call a transformational experience, And if that means that I'm able to give them NIL and revenue sharing, then
Mm-hmm.
what a cherry on top,
Oh,
right?
right.
If that means I'm able to complement the team I have with players that will help us be better through the portal, awesome, right? So I think for me, it's a lot of how you look at it. And I think I'm still early enough in my career that that I've done it a lot of different ways in my 10 years now.
Yeah.
But I really try to look at it through that lens of, like, I will voice when I think there is a disservice, right? But what I can control is how I use these new parts of college athletics
Yeah.
to have our athletes have the best experience possible. And that's the lens I try to view all of the changes by.
Nice. And now, from a coaching standpoint, for you, what is the most rewarding thing you get from coaching?
Okay, I don't care if this is like college volleyball, or I would give lessons to athletes who never gotten a serve over, and that moment they get their serve over, right? They're
Yeah.
like looking at you like you changed their life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's that moment of when an athlete, they don't always have to just be it, but they see their full potential and they understand that they can be it,
Yeah.
right? There is so much in these 4 or 5 years. It's such an intense experience. It's such a challenging experience at the level that we're at. There is a lot of self-doubt, and there are a lot of times that you question yourself and you question your experience. And so when you get to experience with the athlete the other side of that, of I can do this, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really close to doing this, or they have that match, or they have that season, or that moment, or that first phone call to play professional, and it's like watching them have that fulfillment. Yeah, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Nice.
It's life changing.
Yep. Absolutely. And I have to say, when I listened to your pod you did with Dan, you had a quote, you had a saying. I thought it was brilliant. It was, sometimes kids don't need problem solving; they just need someone to listen, or they just need somebody to listen to them. And I thought that's perfect.
Yeah, I probably need to give Bruce Kelsay some. My dad, he I think is tremendous, just human, but he really taught me that lesson. And he played football at Minnesota.
Yeah.
He briefly was in the NFL, at training camp. He is a high school coach, and he is a clinical psychologist, and he's a girl dad of 3 daughters.
Oh God.
And so there's been, I can't tell you how many times in my life where I'll call him and I can audibly hear him like change the hat that he's putting
Yeah.
on his head. And one thing I've always valued so much is he knew when to just listen
Mm-hmm.
and when to say, Kristen, this is heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And not, here's what we're going to do. And here's how you're going to fix it. And you're going to be okay. He knows I'm going to be okay. Right. Like he raised a strong daughter. But in this moment, my heart is broken.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And so he has been that model for me that I try to be for my athletes, of that there's times it's not about solving their problem. It's just somebody to sit next to them and say, I will be here for as long as you need in whatever capacity you need.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful I learned that lesson from him.
Yeah. I have to say, I am one of those, and I'm trying to be better at it, the problem solver.
Yeah.
Whether it's my daughter or my wife, it's like, well, it's like, Dad, I just need you to listen. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
yep. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard.
It is.
You're just
Oh
like,
my
well,
God.
there's a clear way out, and it's like, I know there's a way out, but I don't want to get to that yet. I just need to feel this first, you know?
Absolutely. And now back in your playing days, did you have any pregame rituals that did you have to have your hair done a certain way or a certain meal or?
Oh, yeah, great question. I was like the pregame napper. It's like I needed enough time to and I didn't often fall asleep, but I'm like a pretty over analytical person. And so I just needed to turn it off. So I would always shower, lay down, and I would tell my roommates, can you please get your music a little quieter? And then I'd wake up and have a cup of coffee. And my dad would send me a quote, literally before every game. I don't know how he had that many quotes up his sleeve, but he'd send me a quote. And it was always right around the time I was grabbing my coffee. I have a quote. Sometimes I journaled it. Sometimes I have screenshots from the old iPhone circa 2011, the big block letters of different quotes. And so, yeah, it's similar as a coach. No nap anymore, but I do grab a coffee almost before every match. So,
all right. Also, during your playing days, when you had a couple of bad plays, what was your go-to to reset and refocus?
I really, as someone who did struggle with anxiety as a player at times, it was really important to me to not become too inward.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As I knew that if I got quiet, I was a very vocal, here's the scouting report, here's what they're going to run, watch this, watch that. And as soon as I started to doubt or become too overly analytical, I'd get pretty quiet. And I was more worried about what I was doing than how we were going to win the next point.
Yeah.
And I think that I had a teammate that Corey Moster that I'd be able to go over and grab her hand and squeeze it twice. And that was kind of our signal, and she would help me battle that. But I learned it wasn't a selfish intent, but it was a selfish behavior to focus more on me than how I'm going to help my team in the next point. And when I started seeing it in that light, it was no, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I have to make sure my focus is external on my teammates. And that freed up my brain to stop self-sabotaging myself, right? Or negative self-talk. And instead I'm focused on helping my teammates and helping us win the next point.
Excellent. And now, I probably know the answer. Currently, who's your mentor? Is it still your dad?
I am so fortunate that I have a number of mentors. In my coaching career, I have, Kathy, who's an hour away. And I think, Keegan's still pinned on my top 8, and Shane Davis is crushing it at Loyola with the men. And I have a lot of former assistant coaches that I've worked with that I feel safe, honestly, to call and ask questions to in this first year. And then, personally, it's my parents. My mom is the world's best supporter and cheerleader and has more green in her closet than anyone you will ever meet. And is the epitome of showing up for us, and I've already spoken about my dad and my sisters. And I have a friend group that I've had for 20 years, and so I just feel privileged that God's given me some really special people to at times guide me, at times cheer me on, and at times hold my hand as we go through this.
Excellent. All right, some fun setting questions because we get to pick your brain on setting.
Yeah.
So when you were playing, how did you develop a stronger volleyball IQ? Because that's something I think younger setters, they need a path to figure that out.
Yeah, I would say I wish I would have started earlier. It's just watching volleyball.
Yeah.
And we didn't have social media. That's not an excuse, but like the athletes now have so much at their fingertips, right? To go like go watch the Long Beach State men's setter, right? Or go
Hmm.
watch professional setters or watch team, the women's and the men's USA team. And I just think there's so much at their fingertips now with Huddle and volumetrics and YouTube that just be a student of the game. And I learn things watching now that I'm like, man, I wish I would have had this when I was in middle school or high school. So that would really be like my advice is just watch and learn and be curious as much as you can.
Yeah. And now, what does a high, because you coach club, how does a high volleyball IQ look like in a young setter? When should they start looking, to reading the blockers or start jump setting? Is that something yes, it's individual based on, the skill set, but is that something that, maybe the 14s or 15s should start really focus on, building that, volleyball IQ?
I think there are like three components like in a setter is tactical, technical, and emotional. So from an IQ standpoint, right, like an EQ, like how is their emotional intelligence? Are they understanding that their one outside hitter is a burns hot and likes to be spoken to this way, and their other hitter they have to caress and give a little bit more love? And like, do they have an emotional intelligence of what to say when, and how do they respond to getting pulled and losing a point, right? So that's a huge part, I think, of a setter's IQ is that part, because they have more communication with anybody else on the
Hmm.
floor and as they touch the ball, which goes into, I think, the technical, right? Whether that's the jump setting or being really neutral or having great feet to the ball, or,
Hmm.
I think location and tempo repeatability are really things that we look for in talking about having a high IQ in terms of being tactically or technically sound.
Yeah.
And then third, it's the tactics, right? Are they putting their attackers in good positions, whether that's with their decision making, whether that's with their location? Are they running overloads? Are they seeing the mismatch with the small setter on the other side of the
Hmm.
net? And so I think those are all three areas that, like maybe tactically you're really good, but emotionally you're really poor. Okay, well, there's a way to improve,
Yeah.
right? Or technically you're really good and emotionally you're really good, but tactically you're not looking, it's really easy when you're siding out, but when we're serving, are you also seeing they just rotated and there's a new blocker up there?
Yeah.
And so I think those are three areas that young setters can really work through.
Excellent. Now, I recently had TJ Sanders on, who was Team Canada's setter, and
Yeah.
and when you talked about left, right, left, right, left, which is set in stone, and his approach is getting your hips under there is the key, and then you can square up and do your things from that. And I thought that was a good way of put it, because sometimes you get these kids that are just focused, I got to go left, right, and they think about it too much and not worry
Yeah.
about, the end product.
100%. I love watching TJ stuff too. Like it's really, I think I grew up in a really rigid style and I've come so far from that of like, how do we let our setters be athletes,
Hmm.
and yeah, there's certain moves that I like the pivot on this ball and I like us being really neutral, but most important, are you under the ball, right?
Right.
Like, are you under the ball and at a position where you can deliver a great set with tempo and location. And
Yeah.
so I've definitely like straight away from the like left, right to I think every setter is different as
Yep.
well. When I was at Northwestern, I had two totally opposite setters. And one setter we were talking about a line, and one setter I was talking to Tyler Hildebrand about retract, right? And we were just doing two totally separate things because that's the way that they had learned and the
Hmm.
way their bodies moved. So yeah, I love, I'm open to a lot of that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, and I think he had something that I really liked. He talked about setters. Setters touch the ball so many times. Not every set needs every set that's a mistake doesn't need a correction. You're going to make mistakes. That is a part of a
Mhm.
setter, a part of volleyball.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Not every set needs a correction.
yeah. And then the other
Yeah,
one he
because that,
had I liked was building libraries. Have your setters build their libraries. Like, ooh, that's a good one too. Like, from
mm,
put that in your library from a setting standpoint. And I was like, oh, that's
yeah,
so yeah,
yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. So
I love it. I love learning new things. This is awesome.
excellent. And now for you, when you were setting, did you have, you got that perfect pass. Did you have a favorite set that you just loved, whether it was, doing the slide or setting the bic?
I love back setting. Like to this day, I still love, I'll be like in area 4, like just towards the left front, and I will set a slide. And it used to be on the money, but yeah, I there's a freedom I always had in like literally launching that ball back. And
Mhm.
I loved it.
Nice. And now, as a setter, what was your take on the double rule going away last? Did you cringe sometimes when you saw that? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I would say like the 10-day setting academy in me definitely cringed. So I wouldn't lie to you, but from a 360-degree level,
Mm-hmm.
it was like it makes sense, right? Like
Agree.
doubling the ball is not an advantage for the other team.
Yep.
So why are we calling it? And so I do think it gave our littles, right, our Libros and our DSs a lot more freedom to use
Mm-hmm.
their hands. And I think that makes for a more hittable, exciting game.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a part of my soul that's like, oh, but that doesn't matter. For the most part, I'm like, yeah, I think it was a great decision.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's a decision that the refs don't need to have to worry about anymore. And we're going to start seeing it this year in our high school. And I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
very glad that's happening, because sometimes the kids will hesitate about setting because they're too worried about being called, and they'll revert to the bump set. It's
Yeah,
like, I think
exactly.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, me too. I think for the youth development is also a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, what do you think of in your opinion, where do you think volleyball is today, the sort of the state of the game?
I think there's no better time to be a women's volleyball player,
Yeah.
honestly. And we talk about being part of the Spartan family a lot in our program. And it's like, not only are you a Michigan State Spartan and you're a volleyball player, but you're a Big Ten volleyball player in the United States right now, where there is 4 professional leagues,
Yeah.
right? There is more volleyball on TV. Nebraska played a match in front of 92,000 people. Like, there is no better time to be a women's volleyball player. And what a privilege we
Mm-hmm.
have, and what a platform we have to change lives and
Yeah.
to do some pretty special things.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so happy to see us getting the professional leagues here, so so the girls don't have to go over to Europe and play. They can come home and play here, and develop a following, and it just, create a life for themselves.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah. So I got a fun question for you. So I had Eric showed you on a while ago, and him and Taylor Averill have this thing. What's the toughest position in volleyball? So
Yeah.
Kristen, what's the toughest position?
I gotta go middles. I mean, I have so much respect for our middle blockers. I think it's a really high demanding physically
Mm-hmm.
position. I think they don't, from a number standpoint, right? They don't get rewarded quite as much. I was a setter, so maybe like that. I don't think that, but yeah, if I had to come back as any position, it would be anything but a middle.
Yep, agreed. They got to be there when that odd time that set is that pass is perfect. But
Yeah,
especially with so much out of system stuff these days, they're
I
constantly
know.
getting pushed around, and they got to watch the block. Being a blocker, it's just where everybody's hitting out of anywhere.
Yeah, middles are tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, one last final fun question: if you could change one rule in volleyball, what rule would that be?
I would change the 8-second serve.
Okay.
And I have a little PTSD because in high school, I lost a very important match. Literally, match
No.
point, they called 8 seconds because it was so loud. It was 3,000 people at my high school gym, standing room only. If you know, you know, it was crazy. And we had a sophomore go back to serve, and she didn't hear it. And the guy's counting, and she is freaked out because she's a middle serving game point and she
Yeah.
goes into the
Oh
serve, but
my
we were out of
God.
subs and we lost on game point. And
Oh,
I've always just thought about it's personal, but I've always just thought like, why?
who really
Right?
calls
Like
that?
that's the thing. It's a rule that never really gets called. And maybe it's pace of play, but like let people, I mean, they're not going to take 10 minutes back there,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a rule that I've never seen like called because like somebody's being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I have like a little bad
That's a,
memory about it.
yep. Nope. That's a good one. All right.
So I would change it.
Yep. And now,
And I'd go back to my senior year and let it not be called so we could win.
there you go. And now, away from volleyball, what are some things you like to do?
Oh, thanks for asking, Barry. I will tell you, I love to read, but I have not read a single book in the last 3 months. Um, I love to travel, and that's sometimes traveling overseas, and a lot
Hmm.
of times it's just traveling to see my people.
Yeah.
I love my people hard, and I will hop on a flight and be in New York or in Colorado or in Chicago or in Minnesota as fast as I can because I'm so grateful for them. And so work out, travel, read.
Yeah.
Those are probably my hobbies.
All right. And what's on the bucket list from a travel standpoint? Any destination that you'd like to get to once?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I've been to a lot of places and I have a new one though, is I have two student athletes on our roster right now who are from New Zealand.
Oh,
And they gave me this mug back here and they're headed home, for our break
yeah.
here. And it's the travel is rough. It's like three
Oh,
days.
yeah.
It's a lot, but I want to get out there and I want to see where they're from. And I don't know when, but it's a new on the bucket list because I think it's a part of the country I've never been and never really thought to go. And now I have a reason to go.
Nice. All right. Well, hey,
Yeah.
Kristen, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. But before I let you go, I look for you to recommend somebody in your volleyball circle that would have a good
Mm.
story to come on and share.
Have you interviewed Alyssa Draco?
No?
She would be fantastic. She is a friend and mentor and someone I look up to very much. And
Okay.
she would be fantastic.
All right. And what's her background?
She was on that Penn State 4 run, and she's the associate head coach at the University of Utah. And
Okay.
she will probably be a head coach here in the next couple of years. Phenomenal teacher of the game, phenomenal human, excellent recruiter. Just was at Dayton those years that they were just kick ass.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's just the way she lives her life is really unique, really sweet.
All right. Well, we'll get her on. And again, thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing this and good luck next season.
Thanks, Barry. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.